you know, you W.A.S.P sort of known for doing some pretty amazing, very W.A.S.P sounding covers, which reintroduced a lot of these songs, right? No one really, I think, talks about that. I grew up at a time when I didn't know the originals, and through W.A.S.P, I kind of rediscovered a whole other set of kind of music. Can you comment, like, how do you make those decisions, or do you have a favorite, or?
It's kind of whatever the mood is. You know, it's like I'll be driving down the street and I'll hear a song I've heard all my life and never thought about doing it. And then all of a sudden one day, depending on the mood you're in, it's like, hey, wow, what about that? Because, you know, there's only two reasons to do covers. That's if you think you can do them different, or if you can do them better. That's really the only two reasons. And I would think that most of the covers we've done, I wouldn't say any of them are better than the originals. There's maybe a little bit of a different twist. I mean, probably the greatest compliment I ever got in my life, as far as that goes, is right here in New York City. The Who were playing Radio City, and they were doing Tommy and After. Well, you guys probably saw in the museum that picture of me and Townsend. He told me later that night, he says, no one has ever done to one of my songs what you've done. And I knew exactly what he meant. And he says, it must have taken courage to do that. Because that band they were a locomotive out of control. You know, so I know what he meant by that, you know. So I took that as a very high compliment coming from him. Yes, sir.
You're
Still,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, you go ahead, go.
You're playing the Rock Hard Festival in Germany in June next year.
That's what we're threatening.
Yes, and they asked me 3 months ago for working for them again. And so when they find out that I make a New York special here and I'm today here, we all try to speculate what are your next steps. And they make a short survey. And a lot of German fans would like to know if it could be possible that you make a concert series with all songs from the Inside the Electric Circus.
No,
Is that
right
an
now.
opinion for you?
I
An
mean,
option for you?
We're 3 weeks into this tour.
Yeah.
We just got started.
Yes.
You know, I mean, give us a minute.
But you know, fans always want the next
Yeah, I know, but it's like that's impossible to answer right now.
Okay.
You know, and I would say the chances of doing that record in its entirety by itself is never going to happen.
Nope.
You know, no, it's just, there aren't the songs on there that I feel that are strong enough to compete with the other songs we have. You know, so, you know, listen, we had a situation about 20 years ago. We kept getting fan mail. People wanting us to do B-sides and singles.
Yeah, there's so many good.
Yeah, well, that's what they were saying. And we kept getting those letters, and so we said, all right, we'll try. So we were somewhere in the Netherlands, I forget where. And we go out on stage and we start doing it, and the audience turned into the RCA dog. And we died the most ugly death on stage you've ever seen a band die. Well, trust me, I was there. I saw it, and I thought to myself, I don't know who talked me into this, but I will never do this again. Listen, when you're putting a show together, you have to take an average of what you think all these people are gonna wanna hear. You just can't go on just, you know, people that wanna hear some obscure stuff. You can't do that. You know, there's a lot of people you have to try to satisfy. So, you know, when we start a tour, we'll go in and we'll put up 50 songs on a blackboard, and we'll go through them all. And there's songs I've been trying to do for years I've never been able to do because they just don't make the cut. You know, so, and it's, what I'm trying to say is it's not just what I want to do or the band wants to do, it's we're trying to take an average of what we think the fans would like to hear. So that's really the best way to do it, to try to keep as most people happy as you can. You're up, man.
While you were recovering, did you write any new music? Is there any new albums on the way?
If you would have seen the recovery, no, there was no time to do that. I mean, it's, I tell people, I refer to it as the long road out of hell.
Yeah, I have herniated discs too, and
Okay,
I'm like, I don't know if I want to.
2 herniated discs, a third one is damaged, a broken vertebrae.
I have the L3, 4, 5, and the S1.
All right, so you understand a little bit about it. So, You know, I got one vertebrae that was like this, the one on top of that was like this.
Oh my
The one on
God.
top of that was like this.
And then the discs were blown out too,
Yes.
so. oh,
Those are your
man.
shock absorbers.
Yeah, oh,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
So, I've had the great fortune of working with probably the best specialist in the world
Oh,
to
great.
get me back here. And
Did you
I
have the
was-
surgery done here in New York?
No, it was in California.
Oh, okay.
So, same doctor that operated on me when Aaron Rodgers blew out his Achilles last
Mhm,
year.
mhm.
They had him on the plane that night, sending him out to the hospital I was in. They had him on the same table I was on 2 days later.
Oh, my God.
So these guys, they're wizards at what they do, and they are the best. But still, I tell people it was like going through the rehab was like trying to climb Mount Everest with roller skates.
Mhm.
And you just, you look at you can't, I've been through rehab from different injuries now, probably 6 or 7 times in my life. And every time it's like trying to, you cannot look at the mountain. The mountain is too daunting. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you will eventually get somewhere. I mean, it may not be exactly where you want to be, but it depends on how bad you want it.
Right.
You know, so like I said, I was working 4 months before the tour started. I was working with guys 5 days a week, and let me tell you something. Rehab is a lonely business because you're in there with them 2 hours a day, and then they want you to go home and do nothing so you can heal until the next day. And so you're in there alone with just you and your thoughts.
That's it.
And when you're dealing with probably the foremost back surgeon in the world, and you look him in the eye and you say, am I ever gonna be able to perform again like I used to? And he says, I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
That's not
I
really the
injured my
words you
back on
wanna hear.
9/11, and I ran down 37 flights of stairs. So I've been with this since then, and I've been afraid to have that surgery.
Well, there's a couple of ways out. You can either have the surgery or you can try to do it. You know, I did both,
Mount Everest like I do every day.
but I did both.
Yeah.
But I would not recommend having anybody cut into your back unless they came highly recommended. Because, you know, if you ever thought about when you go to a doctor and you look at his AMA certificate on the wall, do you ever ask yourself, wow, I wonder how many guys were in his class and where did he graduate in that class? Was he at the top? Was he in the middle? Was he at the
I'm
bottom?
always asking those questions.
Yeah,
I don't
you know.
trust doctors, trust me. I really don't.
Yes, ma'am.
No question, just to say thank you for doing what you do. Your music has been a staple throughout my whole life and helped me through the hardest moments in my life, particularly last year when I lost my 22-year-old baby brother. We were supposed to actually go to your show in Toronto. The same week he passed, the tour had been canceled due to your injury. And then this year you came out and you said you're touring again. I'm like, I gotta live this moment for him. And so thank you, really, truly, for helping me through those.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Listen, I lost my dad 5 years ago last month, and him and I were real tight. Real tight.
Yeah.
Still missing. You know, Yankees won this year. You know,
Yeah.
I went to grab the phone, and then I realized.
That's about it, yeah.
But you know what? One of the things, it's like I said, it's been 5 years. In that time, you know, COVID hit right after that, and all kinds of bad crap started happening. And in that time frame, I lost, starting with my dad, I lost 11 people in that period of time. Not a one of them to COVID. It was just one thing or another, you know?
I'm sorry.
And I remember I was writing eulogies, and I just got to a point where I just wanted to scream. Not because I was writing them, it's because of why I was writing. And I got a buddy of mine, he's pretty high up in the Pentagon. And as a matter of fact, the United States has 4 nuclear submarines. He's one of the 4 nuclear submarine commanders. He's had a lot of guys under his command, and he's had to write a lot of those letters. And I called him up and I said, does it ever get any easier? Before I could get the question out of my mouth, he said, no. because there's no words. They're just, and especially me being a writer, I find it so inadequate because there's things you want to say, but there are no words. And I don't know any way to candy coat it. Death sucks. It just does. But the thing that I found that is, for me, the best coping mechanism is if you've got good memories. And if you do, hang on to them with both hands. That's what will get you through it.
Michael.
So I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
I'm really fascinated about the history of the band. I'm just wondering,
About
how did
what?
the history of the band, and I'm wondering, how did you and Randy Piper get together originally?
I met Randy through a mutual friend of ours, and it's one of those things that's just like, you know, when you've known somebody a long time, it's almost like you think you've known them forever, you know. But it's an interesting question because I don't ever remember being asked that, but yeah, he came through a mutual friend. And, you know, I mean, Randy, when W.A.S.P was put together, Randy was not in the band originally. He had another bass player. And Chris didn't get along with the bass player, and he gave me an ultimatum. It was either him or this bass player, Don Costa, who would go on and play for Ozzy. So I made my decision, and I stayed with Chris. But Don could sing really well. We based our whole sound on a two-part harmony. We were like, you know, heavy metal Everly Brothers. I needed somebody I could sing against. Randy could sing, and he could sing well. And so when Don was gone, he was my first choice. So that's how he came about. Yes, sir.
That's a good follow-up question I have. I actually was practicing singing for a few years. I never felt like I got technically good enough, and I kind of stopped my journey there. Do you have any advice on what to do?
Did you sing a scale? Do, re, mi?
Yeah,
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la? You can do that?
okay.
But can you?
Can I?
Then you can sing.
Okay.
The rest of it's just confidence. Anybody in this room, if you can sing a scale, you can sing. It's just a question of repetition. You know, Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, your 10,000 hours you gotta put in to learn any trade.
Okay.
That's what it is. So, this all comes down to how bad you want it. You know, Tom Brady got elected into the Patriots Hall of Fame earlier this year. He said, successful people are not special people. They're just willing to do things that nobody else is willing to do. So, my question to you is, how bad do you want it? Yay, nay?
Yeah, I still, I don't, the passion has not, it hasn't cooled off. It's still there. It's just, I don't, the time commitment is still something that I kind of struggle with. But
Well, you can only do it so much a day.
Right.
So when you say time, what's the holdup?
I feel like there's so many other things in my life, just like having a job just drains me from even,
Okay, well, I have a job too.
yeah.
You know, I mean, but when you're singing, I mean, how long does it take? 15, 20 minutes a day? You know, I mean, you can't sing all day long.
Right.
Or at least not with what we do. You know, if you're gonna sing with any power. But quite honestly, it sounds like confidence to me. You know, and if your confidence, let me back up. I've often said the greatest thing anybody can be blessed with is obsession. If your obsession is greater than your fear, then you got a chance. See, fear is either your friend or your enemy. And if it's something that, if fear makes you afraid, then you're gonna cower in a corner like a little rabbit. But if fear is your friend, then you can use it. And it can be a formidable weapon. It's like anger. Anger can be a weapon. You know, when I was younger, and you know, this record we're doing tonight, I've often said that was an angry record done by an angry band. And as you get older, you realize anger is a formidable weapon to use because it can come in handy. And fear is the same. If you want to use them as motivating factors, let it. the best suggestion I can make to you is, if you're one of those people where you get up in the morning and you put on the shoes and the shoes do the walking, you're just going along for the ride, then you've got a chance. Because what I'm trying to say is it chooses you, you don't choose it. And if you're driven to that point and you're willing to sacrifice, then you got a chance. If you don't, you won't. I'm not trying to be cruel, I'm just telling you the truth. But if you can sing a scale, you can be as good as anybody. I'm not making this up, I'm not trying to give you false hope. I'm telling you the absolute truth. You know, anybody, if they can sing a scale, can be a singer. The reason I say that is because if you can sing a scale, that means in your mind's eye you can see the notes. Some people cannot see the notes, and if they can't see the notes in their head, in other words, hear where it needs to be, if they cannot hear that, they will never be able to sing. But if they can, the rest of it's just a question of developing the muscle. That's all. Yes, sir.
Me?
Two questions for you. Quick ones. Your voice.
Get on top.
Your voice, I feel like, is another member of the band. You know, so many of your contemporaries have struggled, and like a lot of them have to, you know, drop keys or other things. Like, what do you attribute your longevity?
It's a muscle. You exercise it, stays in shape. You use it or lose it. You know, it's really no more complicated than that. You know, so do you have designs on doing it?
No, just enjoy your vocal range. Even Idol Reimagined sounds.
You know, one of the blessings in disguise for me happened in '83. I ruptured the left side of my voice. There was a virus going around and everybody got it, and it was a viral laryngitis. And everybody who got it, when they tried to talk like that, you know, well, that didn't happen to me because of being a singer. My voice was more developed than most people, so I was able to talk. I got this thing. I just thought I had the flu. So I go to rehearsal one day and I'm trying to sing and I'm cracking while I'm singing, and I'm thinking, well, I just need to get loose. So I just kept pushing until I was totally hoarse. And a couple of days goes by and it's not getting any better. So I thought, well, I need to go see somebody. And fortunately, there was a guy over in Beverly Hills. His name was Ed Cantor. Passed away a couple of years ago. But Ed was the foremost voice specialist in the world. You know, most doctors you go in, they got their AMA certificates on the wall. Not this guy. Gold records, sealing the floor all the way around. Sinatra, Stevie Nicks, everybody's career he had saved. And so he goes in and he does this fiber optics exam on me, where it's kind of like, it's long and it's thin. It looks like E.T.'s finger. It's got a light on the end. They run it up your nose, down into your voice, and there's a monitor that you can probe around. You can see my right side of my voice, the larynx, is pristine. He went over to the left side and it looked like raw, bloody hamburger meat. And he told me, he said, "You got a big problem here, son." He says, "If you do what I tell you, I'll get you through this. If you don't do what I tell you, you will never sing again." First one, you don't speak for 9 weeks. Phone rings, let it ring. Go to a restaurant, take a pen and pad. You do not speak. If you speak, you will never sing again. You're going to get halfway through this process and you're going to feel like your voice is better. You're going to be tempted to try it. If you do it, you will never sing again. He kept hammering. He put fear of God in me. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to go for 9 minutes without speaking. Try it sometime around people. 9 days, 9 weeks, that's a long time. So I did what he said. But he said to me after it was all over, he says, "You watch the Olympics?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You watch the runners doing a 100-meter dash? What are they doing before the race?" I said, "Stretching." He goes, "Duh." He goes, "You don't stretch, do you?" I said, "No." He says, "Try it." So it took about a year to really get it back to where it was. But because of what he taught me, not only did I get it back, I was better than I was before the accident. So, you know, this goes back to the back situation. How bad do you want it? You know, and if you got that eye of the tiger, you'll get it, and if you don't, you won't. All right, shorty question 2.
My mind was blown some years back when I
I
heard
can't
Mr.
help you with that.
when I heard Mr. Cool, and I didn't know that
Oh.
existed. And so, like, how did you decide to rework? I think I like the chorus of Cool better, but the verse of Cry is better. Like, how did
I wrote it when I was 18, and I played with Arthur Kane for a little bit after the Dolls broke up. We recorded it, he released a single, we did our version of it, and he sued me. Twice. For a song he didn't have anything to do with. Thank you, Arthur. You know, so I had to rearrange it a little bit to keep from getting sued again. You know, so if not, I would have just left it as it was. Yes, sir.
All right, so this might be like a generic sort of question,
I'll
but
be
like,
good.
but like, how do you like find things to write songs about? Like with me, like if I feel like a bunch of different emotions, like I can't really channel it into like songs and stuff. Like if I feel like sad, I just feel sad. Like how do you like just like write about it?
Well, of course you can.
Yeah.
John Lennon said, somebody says, how you write a song? He says, just write down what you feel, put a backbeat to it.
Yeah.
Now, we know as songwriters that's a little more simplistic, it really is. But in truth, it's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm watching TV, listen, I'm an average guy. I am just like everybody else in this room. I like the same movies and the same food and everything everybody else likes. I don't have eclectic taste. So if I'm watching TV and I see something that bothers me, it's probably a pretty good chance it's gonna bother everybody else.
Yeah.
So my job is to try to put it on paper in a way that makes sense. Because if you're gonna try to write, one of the things you quickly learn is the value of words. Words are colors. Remember when you were in school and that guy in class next to you had that 62 pack of crayons with a Sharpie?
Yeah.
If he knew how to use that, he could rip you to ribbons. And there you are with that little 8-pack of crayons, and you can't do much. But if you know how to use that 8-pack, you can destroy them.
Oh yeah.
If you know how to use them. Mark Twain said the difference between the right word and the wrong word is the difference between lightning and lightning bug. They sound close, but they're miles apart. All right, so we're gonna look at varying degrees of meaning. Hate, dislike, loathe. So I'm gonna write something and I'm trying to convey to you what I'm feeling. And I say to you, I dislike this person. You conjure up an image in your head that says, well, he doesn't really care for me. I write, I hate this guy, and you're thinking, he really doesn't like me. I write, I loathe this individual. The image that's conjured in your head is, I want to see him in a pine box. That's how you do it. You're looking for the right word to convey the right emotion. And that's the secret. You know, how do you put it down? And if you feel an emotion strong enough, I guarantee you that you could do it.
All right.
Yeah, because, well, I mentioned Townsend a second ago. That night we were here, I told him, I said, you know, you make songwriting look so easy. And he started laughing as soon as I said that. And the way he was laughing, I knew that it did not come easy to him. And I said, all right, let me give you an analogy and tell me if you can relate to this. You start out, you have a block of stone in front of you. You got a chisel in one hand and a hammer in the other. And you start whacking away. And pretty soon it starts to take shape. Some shapes end up better than others. But it doesn't matter whether it's a good shape or a bad shape. Somewhere along the way, you are guaranteed you're going to slip and your knuckles are going to get bloody. And he started laughing. And he said, that's the greatest analogy I've ever heard. What he means is it's a painful process and it's based on failure. How willing are you to fail at what you do? And if you set the bar high enough in your head, it's frustrating, because you know what you want to do. Finding it is two different things. So how much are you willing to sacrifice to be able to do it? If you are willing to do that, I guarantee you can do it. If you feel the emotion, if you don't have the emotion, you got no prayer. But it's kind of back to his situation with singing. If you want to, you can. Again, successful people are not special. They're just willing to do the homework. Remember the story of the little red hen? Who's gonna help me bake this cake, said the little red. Not I, said the fox, not I, said the hen. Who's gonna help me eat this cake? Well, everybody wants to eat it. You know, few people want to do the labor. That's what it's about. Yes, sir.
When you were making the W.A.S.P songs and that process, when you would go into the studio and perform, how does that differ from when it came out on the album? Was there anything different?
Night and day.
Night and day?
Yeah, because when you're in the studio, you don't know what you're doing. You're making it up as you go. You come in with a thumbnail of what you think you want to try to do. But, you know, it's often been said that why can't we tour the record first and then come back and record it once we know what it really is? But we don't get that opportunity. Everybody wishes they could, you know, so. It is a tedious process. It too is based on failure a lot of times. Some of them come in 5 minutes. Some of them take months. Some of them take years. You know, I don't know any songwriter that doesn't have remnants of little bits and pieces that they've collected over the years, sometimes 20, 30 years old. And then you pull it out, you know, when something is suitable for that situation. So there's no method. You know, people say, do the lyrics come first? Does the music come first? Yeah. You know, there is no set way. And the best ones are the ones you dream, especially if they got lyrics. I mean, I dreamt Hold On to My Heart. I dreamt Headless, you know, and it's great because you wake up and they're there and it's like somebody gave you something for free. You know, so those are the best, you know, but it doesn't. Billy Joel says he dreams all his. I wish I could do that, but I'm not lucky. Yes, sir.
First, just want to say thank you for all the great music and everything you've done over the years. Very grateful for everything you've done. I was wondering if you feel that the image and the controversies that surround you in the early 80s, even though that was maybe helpful to your career early on, if you feel that in the long run it was...
Tell you what, normally I'd answer that question, but I'm going to do something tonight in the show that I've never done. And I'm going to talk for about 3 to 4 minutes during the show about this very thing, because I think this is the place to do it. I'll explain later tonight why, and why being here in New York City is the right place to do it. So you'll get your answer later.
Mark, how you doing? Last time I met you, I asked you a question about the Crimson Idol, any leftovers on the shelf. You said a song called Paradise, Lost in Paradise? Crazy in Paradise. Anything with the Neon God sitting on the shelf that you may release later on an album or something? Or are you done?
I haven't thought about it, to be honest. When I finished the Neon God, I just felt like the story. Well, let me back up. When I did the Crimson Idol, it was a simple story. And it was something that people could relate to. It was basically a story of a kid looking for love. Now, inside that, the story is quite complicated. But the overall of the story is pretty simple. Crimson Idol was complicated from the get-go, and I made it that way on purpose because I wanted people to dig more. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have kept it more simplistic because it was complicated to the point where I think people thought it was convoluted. And there was too much in between the lines that I wanted people to go look for themselves. And if I had it to do over again, I would have done it. Now that's got really nothing to do with the music, but when it comes to anything that's story-based, keep it simple, stupid. You know, I think is the best. Yes, sir.
kind of a follow-up to his question.
Oh,
So it's gonna be a very simple answer for you, though, I think.
you sure?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it an A or B. So,
Listen to this one.
yeah, back in the day, you know, in the '80s, there were a lot of bands that were pretty known to be wild, but they were, I guess you could say, truly wild, like your Motley Crues and your Poisons and stuff like that. And I know some of the members in your band were a little bit on the wild side. And without going into details, do you feel you were more of a member of that crew or a Peter Frampton from the '70s? Or somewhere in the middle?
I don't know, I write a song like Animal and. Yeah, Peter Frampton, you're right.
Yeah. No, yeah, you know what I'm saying, because he was very.
No, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, just asking.
You know, yes, ma'am.
Well, not only are you a superb vocalist, but you have got a phenomenal narrative style for the story of Jonathan. It's like, dang, you are good. And I'm just wondering, when you eventually release your book, any chance of an audio book, maybe?
Not only an audio, but we're thinking, and I won't tell you what, because if I do, somebody will steal the idea. But we're thinking about doing something beyond an audio book. And I want to see it first before we say anything. It ends up being a little bit like a one-man play. You know? So, but we'll see. You know, I mean, I gotta test it first and, you know, see what it looks like. And, you know, I don't want to say anything, you know, have people say, well, yeah, but you said you were gonna, and it didn't work out. But I gotta finish the book first, you know, because when I started, everybody said, how long is it gonna take? And I said, 6 months. And now it's been 3 years. You know, and what I found is when I kept digging, I was digging and digging and digging, and then more things started to reveal themselves, because one of the things I discovered, and I guess everybody does this, we have a surface memory of events that happened a long time ago. But if they were recorded, and you could see what they really were, you might have a difference of opinion, because what I'm saying is, let's say you had 3 different versions of the same story. Is there any evidence that would substantiate one being more truthful than the other? And that's a lot of what's going on here. And there's also, you know, there's personal things in there too. You know, Peter Gabriel, digging in the dirt to find the places we got hurt. You know, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, you know. So, but one of the things that I discovered when I first started writing it, I singularly thought it was my story, which seemed reasonable. But the more I started writing, the more I started realizing it was about the town itself. The town itself is a very prominent character in this book. Without the town, I'm not here. Good or bad, I am not here. You know, so that hence the reason for Tales from the Square Mile. It's what happened in that square mile, because the overarching story of the whole book is I'm sleeping on people's floors for the first year and a half. You know, then I moved into my deluxe accommodations, which was a closet that was 3 feet by 12 feet. I was in there for a year and a half. And, you know, I went to another place and I went without electricity and heat for 3 years. You know, so to answer your question again, how bad do you want this? Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, I went without electricity for 3 years. Imagine it for a day. Because when I tell people 3 years, I see it go right over their heads. They cannot picture what I'm saying. But when you break it down to them and you say, okay, imagine going a day without electricity. Then you see the light bulbs start to go off over their head. And then you say, try 3 days, try a week. And then you start to see the picture form in their head. And then when you say 3 years, then they get it. That's a long time to keep your eyes on the prize, focused. And it's not easy. I mean, it all, when I use the expression, how bad do you want it? It sounds like a frivolous expression. There's teeth in that expression. How bad do you can you live without it? So that's was the foundation of the book. And what I found was that I thought if I had success, that miraculously I was gonna wake up in Valhalla one day and everything was gonna be totally different. Get a record deal, we had success very quickly. I'm living in a better place. I'm not living in the mile anymore, I moved away. But what I found that I was still working in the mile. So every day in the studio, whatever studio we were in, we're still in the mile. So I'm driving a better car and I'm eating better, but I'm still working in the same place. 3 blocks down, I was in a closet. I'm driving by it every day. It's totally different, and it's not different at all. And the memories are still there. Will forever be. I could tell you a story about every square inch of that town. The things I saw. There's probably maybe a half a dozen guys that can tell this story that actually lived it. Myself, Frankie Benelli, Kevin DeBro, Mickey, and not many others, because they weren't there as long as we were. There were others that came through that were transient and maybe were there a few years and had success. But I'm talking about from the 70s on. 2 of them are now gone. So to be able to tell the story. I mean, Frankie used to, when I was living in this one place where I lived in a little place in the back, and the landlord's house was in front, and they had a little white picket fence. Frankie was staying with some girl 2 doors down from me. We had a particularly cold winter, and every night he'd go out there and steal 2 or 3 slats off of their fence and take them and burn them for firewood because they didn't have any heat. By the time the winter was over, the fence was totally gone. So it's stuff like that. That's how we lived. It got rough. So, this book is full of those kind of stories. It's not your sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There is some of that in there, but that story's been done to death. This is more of, this gets, it's poignant. Let's put it that way. Yes, sir.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for all the years you did.
Thank you.
And my question was on your first work. What can you remember was your most memorable experience?
Some of them were right here, those 3 nights at Morris. The first time I ever saw stage diving. Armored Saints on stage, and I see these guys, pole vaulting off the stage. What the hell are they doing? So I'd never seen that before. I can't remember. I think it was the first night, and Capitol had interviews. So I did 18 interviews that one day, and the last I did 14 before the show and 4 after the show. And the last one that I did that night was the NBC Nightly News. And by the time I got to them, I couldn't speak. I mean, my voice was totally shot. So it's, yeah. I mean, but then again, that's a learning curve that every new band goes through. Because you're going places and seeing things you've only read about, heard about. And in a lot of ways, it's everything it's cracked up to be. I mean, and I would say more often than not, it's more than you think it's going to be. And plus you're meeting people, you're meeting your heroes. And it's, every day your mind's getting blown one way or another, so it's interesting. Yes, sir.
So, again, appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Listening to you from the very beginning of heavy music, and I'll accept a no comment or no answer on this, because I know you've been asked it probably 100,000 million times. I think the last time your answer was, we ain't simple, pal. So do we know? Is there
We
gonna
ain't
be
sure, pal.
Oh, we ain't sure, pal. Is there gonna be a revelation tonight?
Remember right.
Any revelation, or was there just no meaning at all?
It just never was.
Never was,
He's
right?
asking about the meaning of the.
That was my question 2 years ago.
No, it
Last
wasn't.
story,
we wanted a name that was controversial
Yep.
without really being controversial. So if you knew what it meant, great. If you didn't, that was great too, you know. I mean, 40 years later, we're still talking about it.
Sure.
You know, so it went far greater than we ever could fantasize
Sure.
that it ever did. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm from Jersey across the river. I wonder if you had
You
a
have
good...
my sympathy.
So maybe it's not a good question. Do you have a good memory of playing in that state?
Yeah, man, you know, Meadowlands, all that stuff, you know, good memories, you know. I can remember being backstage at the Meadowlands. We were opening for Sabbath, and I'm listening to these, somebody, every time I walk by their dressing room, you know, I hear some new guy singing. And I'm thinking, what's going on over there, right? You know, and after the first 3 or 4 times, I didn't think much about it. And then this goes on all afternoon. And our dressing room is right across the hall. I can't help but hear it, you know? And so finally I asked one of our crew guys, I go, what the hell is going on in their dressing room? He goes, they're auditioning singers. I said, what? Aren't we in the middle of a tour? You know? Yep. Glenn Hughes had been doing that tour, and Tony had reached his limit, and next thing you know, they had a new guy out on stage, and it was so bad too, because they I think it was 3 nights later we were playing Hartford Civic, and Ray Gillen, the guy that they got to take his place, he didn't know any of the Sabbath songs. They had the lyrics to all the songs taped onto the monitors. And so he'd sing one song, and then he'd go over to another monitor, and I mean, it was, the audience didn't know what was going on. It was pretty hysterical. So that's my Jersey story. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're actually from upstate New York, and our music scene, right? So when we were kids, we would stay up late on a Saturday night around a bonfire with a 12-pack of Meister Brother. We gave a guy $5 to buy us with
I'll
$1.
do one of those.
$1 in his pocket, right? So we'd sit around a bonfire because you'd only get metal for 3 hours a night from the local college, you know. I mean, do you think, in of course, Gene Simmons being quoted as saying, you know, the scene is dead, or, you know, rock is dead, or whatever. Do you think the scene will come back? Do you think it's more of a roller coaster with peaks and valleys, or what do you think of the scene today? Is there any much of it? In my opinion. But I hope.
Where we are right now, I mean, if you're asking me to look into a crystal ball, I'll tell you where we are at the moment. Music has no value. You're dealing with a generation who's gotten everything for free. When you wanted a record, when you were a kid, you cut grass. You saved your lunch money. And then you went to the record store and you made the agonizing decision of those 10 records that you wanted, but you could only have one. You traded your sweat equity for the artist's sweat equity. So, then this digital revolution happens and all that changes. We see in show business, let's say we go back to the 1900s. Vaudeville is king. A few years later, radio comes out and puts a serious dent in vaudeville. Then silent movies come out, put a bigger dent in vaudeville. Talkies come out 6, 7 years later and decimates vaudeville. So we see in show business about every 20 years, the blackboard gets totally erased and it's reborn. We're at a place now where kids for $10 can get an unlimited supply of music. So to them, it has no value. They don't trade any sweat equity for it. You know, they don't get these 12-inch records to sit and study and look at the lyrics. They don't do that. Their music is in this little gizmo, you know, and so they don't value it the same. It's like oxygen to them. It's just there and it's free, you know. So that's where we are. You're asking me to look into that crystal ball. I don't see it as favorable. I hope some technological revolution happens that will then allow us to do what show business has done for the last 120 years, to reinvent itself. But I don't see that on the horizon, at least not as we speak. So I wish I could be, you know, I wish I could give counterpoint to what Gene is saying, but at this point, I don't see it. Like I said, when you don't place inherent value on something, you lose respect for it. And it's really sad because music is a language. It's a language that we speak. And if that's lost, I fear for them. You know, it's not gonna affect you, it's not gonna affect me. But what they will lose, you know, I talked about words being colored. You know, music is color. You know, and if you lose that, your world becomes more black and white. You know, and I feel so sorry for them in that sense, you know. But it's, they seem to be addicted to those things, and I can't change that, so it is what it is. All right, folks, I gotta go to work.
Anybody not get a question?
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Ask a question?
Me?
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was messing. My question is that, do you remember at the beginning when you start with your band, which kind of band were you motivated to create your own band?
I'm one of those guys, I'm a typical musician. We only see good and bad. You know, we don't put labels on things. You know, so you know, my mom, she was a professional dancer, and she worked for an organization called the U.S.P during the Second World War. So she was the one that had the music around the house, you know, Little Richard and Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, all that stuff. So I grew up with all that. And it was always around the house. You know, somebody asked me the other day, I'd never been asked this question before. He says, when did you know you could sing? And he totally caught me flat-footed, because I don't ever remember a time where I didn't. You know, that would be the better question, you know. I've just always done it because it was always around the house. Well, my mom told me, she said, you know, when she'd go to the grocery store and she'd take me, and you know, the carts that has the seat where you put the kid in so he can't escape, you know. She said if she forgot something, she'd go over to another aisle, she'd come back, I'd be down on the floor, and I'd have a crowd of people around me, and I'd be doing hound dog with all the gyrations. She said she should have known what I was gonna do for a living. You know, 2 years old doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't ever remember a time where I did. So to answer your question, I'm one of those filters that everything that goes through it gets absorbed, and I couldn't really pinpoint one thing. You know, it's just it's an amalgamation of a whole lot of things, and what you see is me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, staff, and let's escort you back up to